And welcome back to another episode of The Laws That Matter. I'm Carissa Kranz, and we have a great show in store for you. I have today with me Will Tucker. He is a four-time natural bodybuilding champion and dubbed American Vegan Trainer. What a trademark to have. So, Will, without further ado, thank you for joining me. It's a pleasure to meet you live here on the Jane Unchained News Network. You're a contributor as well, right?
I am. Hi, Carissa. How are you? It's a pleasure to meet you. And yes, I am a contributor with Jane Unchained Network.
Okay, so I want to know all about you and your vegan story. I mean, I've seen some amazing pictures of you on the internet doing some pretty serious bodybuilding stuff. I mean, that is talk about ripped off of plants.
That is correct. I've been vegan. Well, October will mark 10 years. And I was vegetarian 5 years prior to that. And I began my bodybuilding career when I was vegetarian, but didn't actually start winning until I went full vegan.
So cutting the cheese and the dairy made you the winner.
You
Reminds
knew
me,
it.
reminds me of our Olympic champion and from Game Changers, Dottie.
Oh, yeah. Yes. We do have some similarities in our stories, and you went right to it. You knew it was that addictive dairy and cheese that were the last things I had to give up to make the full transition.
So tell us about it. How did that transition? How did you see it change in your body? How long did it take to see your body transition to a winner bodybuilder at these competitions?
You know, it's been a lifetime of work, even back in my omnivore days. I'm a Midwest guy. I grew up in East St. Louis, Illinois, meat and potato country. So it wasn't until after college and working in the corporate world and undergoing some downsizing, I wound up out here in Arizona. And at that point, my mind started to evolve being in the new environment. And that's how I kind of found my way to vegetarian first and then veganism. If you're asking just about the changes going vegetarian and vegan, the biggest change as far as working out was recovery time. I mean, it was minimal, if any. And the way, as you showed in that first photo, the way my body changed as far as leanness, no inflammation, no kind of pains, because I had an elbow issue I was dealing with at that time. And all those issues just disappeared once I dropped the dairy and cheese a little bit that I was doing when I was still vegetarian.
Mm-hmm. So when you went vegetarian, what was your reasoning behind that? It sounds like
no. Now we get into the secret sauce. As I said earlier, I'm originally from the Midwest, so I grew up heavy meat and potato country. After college, I started working in mortgage banking, and in the mid to late 2000s, when there were downsizes, a team got transferred to the West Coast because I now reside in Arizona. Well, first year I went to Vegas in a different role, and then I came over and joined the other team. And that first year that I got together with them, we had a traditional Thanksgiving at one of the team members from St. Louis house, turkey, all the trimmings, traditional, if you will. And this was November 2006.
Mm-hmm.
And, a fellowship, ate with the people that stayed out here and decided not to go home for the holiday. And then took this huge plate of leftovers. You can't leave anybody's home without a big plate of leftovers. All this, turkey and ham and all the other trimmings, full of animal secretions and flesh. Went back to my apartment and started flipping through channels, watching television. Somehow I wound up on the National Geographic channel. And there was a documentary that was airing about the birth of small animals and the connection between the baby and the mother. And I don't care what type of animal it was, whether it was a bear, a bird, a fish, a giraffe, tiger, cat, dog, you name it. There was one thing that was common amongst all of them, and it was the connection between the baby and the mother. And I saw that intimate connection, and I got drawn into that program, and I watched it until the very end. And when it ended, I just said, yo, my whole life I've been eating somebody's baby. I mean, it just correlated. That was my aha moment. And that day, Thanksgiving 2006, I threw every piece of meat I had out of my house after watching that program, and I was full vegetarian. Now, as we mentioned earlier, they sneak dairy in some foods that you find in the aisles of the grocery store, and still did eggs up to a certain degree, limited. And then that ever addictive cheese that you spoke about, that was my big vice. So I was vegetarian 5 years. Then October 1st, 2011, I decided as a challenge to myself, I was going to go the month of October without consuming the dairy, eggs, or cheese. And 2 weeks in, I never felt better. My workout performance was better. The recovery, as I mentioned earlier, was minimal, if any. I was sold in 2 weeks. I was like, this is how I should feel, especially competing at a high level as an athlete.
There's the body of a vegan bodybuilder.
Yes, and it's interesting you show that picture. That was the fall of 2011 after I went full vegan, and that was when I won my pro card, that photo right there.
Awesome. So you went vegetarian for the animals. I'd love to know that documentary, by the way, from National Geographic. The name of it sounds like something that would inspire a lot of people. I
can't recall the name. It could have been just their regular programming, but it was just that connection, that bond between mother and baby. And it blew my mind. I was like, how did I never see this or think like that as a kid? It reminds me of my connection I had with my mother. It was real. It was that aha moment, that defining moment, that switch had finally been flipped. And it shook me to my core.
Last week I had on this show Renee from the Texas cattle rancher that is now Rowdy Girl Sanctuary in Texas.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
That she converted, and she was telling me her story and her aha moment, how she was, a cattle rancher in door number 2, and then she had to get her psyche into door number 3, and how they were transitioning and trying to understand their humane meat, because cattle ranchers are good people and they love their animals. So she says, let's try to be humane about this and let's kill one of our own. And that's what we'll eat. And it came to the point where they couldn't do it. They couldn't kill the one of their own that they had given a name to, and it wasn't just a number, and it was a cow that they knew. And then they went to some dinner party, and she had read some documentary or some book that talked about beef stew, and they just happened to have at that dinner party a beef stew. And that was her aha moment. She says, Carissa, it was like divine intervention that it was a beef stew after I just watched this, after I started almost considering killing my own. And she says, I just said out loud, I blurted it out, I can't eat that. It is hacked up dead animal parts. And she said that everyone in the room stopped and looked at her with their jaw wide open in shock, like she had just killed someone in the room, because it was out of character they're cattle ranchers in Texas, right? And she just had that connection that this is chopped up. She had a way of saying it: chopped up, hacked up, dead animal, floating body parts. I think she said floating in the beef stew.
Wow.
And she says once she made the connection that it wasn't like this flavorful dish, but it's body parts floating in the dish. She's like, I was done. She said, I was done with all animals parts, all dairy. I was just done. I was overnight vegan. They made the connection, and they never looked back. But okay, so it sounds like you went vegetarian for the animals because you found the connection to the mother. But it wasn't until, why did you ditch dairy? Mm-hmm. What made you ditch dairy? Was it the health, and you thought it would help your performance as an athlete, or did you ditch dairy because you realized the industry, and it just so happened that your health and professional performance improved as a side effect? You there?
Well, that was definitely a side effect, but through the journey when I was vegetarian, in the beginning, of course, you have all the naysayers, people I trained with, hardcore meat eaters and gym rats saying, oh, you're not going to be able to build muscle. You're going to lose muscle. So remember, this was mid to late 2000s. And this shows you how long ago it was. I went into Borders bookstore. I was in there one day, and I found a book by a gentleman who's now a friend of mine, Robert Cheek, called Vegan Bodybuilding and Fitness. So after reading that book, picking up the book, it kind of planted the seed, I guess. And it wasn't until, that moment, October 1st, 2011, where I just decided I'm going to ditch the dairy. But seeing that book kind of validated that I was doing something right or on the right path, it did plant a seed. And then the day I just decided to give it up, it was just more of a personal challenge because that was all that was holding me back from making a complete transition. And as I said, it was supposed to be a 30-day challenge to myself. In my mind, I thought, November, I'd go right back to eggs, dairy, and cheese. But as I said, 2 weeks in, the way I felt, the way my recovery was after workouts, after intense workouts, there was no soreness really. It was different from what it was prior to giving up those dairy items. And I was hooked. I was like, yes, this is it. This is how I'm supposed to feel. My training took off from there. And as that photo that you showed, I won my first pro card there too. And I was like, I'm done. I'm hooked. This is the way I'm going to live. This is the way I'm going to compete. And then it transitioned into me going around speaking and promoting that lifestyle to other people through my fitness studio, through competing. I went on tour with Robert Cheek, the gentleman I spoke of who wrote the book. We've been on tour many times together doing what are they? I don't want to say performances. I'm drawing a blank. Presentations. So I've been on, featured on a lot of different stages, BC before COVID, and looking forward to getting back out there, educating more people once the world opens back up.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Once the world opens back up. So, I've been a vegan from birth and I'm a lawyer now, but I was a professional ballet dancer. I know, we're learning about each other live. Isn't that great when two busy people can get together on a great network who both love Jane and know Jane and contribute to Jane and have a carved out 1 hour conversation. And then at the end of the show, we have a new friend. That's how these shows always work. I love it. So I am a lawyer now, but I was born and raised vegan by my mom. She turned vegan when she was pregnant with me. She was raised vegetarian, and she ditched the dairy when she became pregnant with me. And she did it for health reasons. My parents got divorced when I was 5. And I then had to split my time. So my mom said, when you go to your dad, he's going to think you need your protein and he's going to try to feed you X, Y, and Z. This is what it is. A beef is a cow, a chicken breast is this little bird, whatever. So I said, I'm not eating that. I made a connection at 5 years old. And I went to my dad's and I waged World War III on my plate that I was not eating an animal because I liked animals. So later in life, my mom thought that maybe she needed fish to be more healthy as she got older. And I remember she had introduced fish into her diet for a very short period of time because I got really mad. I was like, how could you raise me vegan? But see, I helped her make the animal connection and she stopped and she realized she didn't need it for her health. It was all like she was buying into the doctors that were saying it for the wrong reasons. But, in my mind, I was like, you raised me vegan. She's like, I raised you vegan because I thought it was healthier. And I'm like, but we love animals. And, so she evolved in that transition with me because once you make the connection and you can't not know or you can't unknow what you know. Exactly. Like you saw that video and of that mom connection and sure you can compartmentalize it, but and most people do for a period of time. And a lot of people go through processes of falling on the bandwagon, falling back off the bandwagon. It's a process, but usually that process has that aha moment and you never know what it's going to be for somebody where it will click and there's just no going back because you cannot unknow anymore what you know. And that's empathy, really. So I was going to say, though, because I wanted to relate, is I was a professional ballet dancer. And growing up vegan between my dad, who wasn't vegan, and at the time, the food pyramid had meat and dairy. Since then, the USDA has been sued and by the Physicians Committee of Responsible Medicine, and the food pyramid has been redefined to not have meat and dairy. But when I was growing up, or to not have those food groups in the same way, not to not have meat and dairy, it's still something that is very much supported by our governments. But but back then the food pyramid was different than it is now. So people were worried about me. I was like an unproven scientific experiment to them. And they were, oh, you're going to break your bones. You're not going to have strong bones. You're doing ballet. You're going to have issues. And I have to say, I never broke a bone in my body my entire life. I got into New York City Ballet and American Ballet Theater. I went to Berkeley Law School. I passed the bar in Florida, New York, and DC. So if anyone's going to say that a vegan diet means that you're going to have less performance ability mentally or physically, I would say that the proof is in the pudding. Like, I've lived a life like this, chosen because I care about animals, but I don't think there's been any sacrifice in, I can't say flavor because I'm not one that has the contrast to comment, but I can say there's no sacrifice in the ability to perform at a high level as an athlete or an intellect.
Absolutely. In fact, I think it enhances it. You're talking to somebody who did consume meat and animal secretions for the first 36 years of their life. And I look back at a lot of the people from back home and, classmates, really. We're connected in this Facebook group. I've been out of high school well over 30 years. And, I constantly, weekly almost, see, someone posting in there that we lost a classmate due to health issues. It's just constant health. And, especially, let's just be real, in Black and brown communities, there are huge health disparities. And I have to look back and see that. That's why I'm itching, because that's where I was really going to be targeted in 2020, was going and doing more talks in inner cities. And of course, COVID. But I'm itching to get back out there because I feel I can really have an impact there, because I was raised exactly like most of the people there, especially if we're talking about classmates. And you mentioned the naysayers. Oh, wow. The first time I went back home, and this was when I was just vegetarian, there was a, typical gathering, and, people have to bring food. It was at one of my aunt's house. And when I came out, I guess, and said, I no longer eat meat, I was just vegetarian. Oh, you should have saw the looks in the comments, the remarks. And I have one aunt that's been like a nurse forever, since Florence Nightingale, I guess. And she was like, so where are you going to get your protein? Of course, that's the first question. She's now all of a sudden she's concerned about me. When I was eating buckets of fried chicken growing up, she had no concern. But now she's concerned because I'm not eating dead flesh. And she was really, really concerned. So I broke it down for her. I was like, well, you've been a nurse, for 30, 40 years. How many patients have you seen, that had a protein deficiency? And she was like, 0. And I was like, well, how many do you see with heart attack, stroke, diabetes, cancers alike that are directly attributed to consuming red meat and animal products? And she sees them daily. And that was her moment, like, I mean, she still eats meat, but at least she knew that she was messing with the wrong person, because I'm aware of, both sides of it. I mean, but I was brainwashed by the industry too for many, many years. And those industries do have a stronghold on it. Like you mentioned how you said your mom felt a certain way and went back to fish for a minute. She thought she was doing it for health reasons. We're talking some powerful, powerful industries that have a stronghold on everybody, most Americans anyway, their mind and what ends up on the end of that fork and going in their bodies. And we know that it's done that way by design. You consume the animal, you get illness, chronic illness, self-inflicted. You go to a doctor, they put you on a prescription, you think that you're supposed to live on it for the rest of your life. And then you got this Band-Aid. I mean, I saw that with my own grandmother. She had the whole pill box with the days of the week marked off on it. And illnesses or conditions that were directly attributed to her dietary choices. There's no way around it, knowing what I know now. And I watched as a kid, and it seemed like I'm thinking that's just the way you're supposed to live when you hit a certain age or a certain point in life. You're just supposed to start taking medications. So now that I know what I know, I'm just waiting on the world to open back up, and I'm going straight in the hood on the block. Even if I'm got one person out there listening to me, I'm going to reach somebody.
Hey, as long as someone's listening, you're making a difference. You don't need to focus on the naysayers. The naysayers are a waste of your time. They're not open, and you're wasting your valuable energy trying to explain and convince them to see the light when there's so many people who want to see the light, and just need a little bit of help or some tips. Like here we have Miriam who's saying, I'm having a ton of trouble staying fit and vegan. I would love tips. A lot of people will want to hear you on the street giving tips, looking the way you look.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
So, let's have some tips. Miriam's not the only one. Miriam's not the only one here asking for tips. Miriam's asking for tips. We have Patricia saying that she needs more help than ever to gain muscle at 53.
Mm-hmm.
People want to hear from you. What are your tips?
Patricia, I'm right there with you, as I'll be 51 in August. So I'm right there with you at that age. And I mean, I'm not competing anymore. I haven't competed in like 5 years. So I'm just more so in the maintenance mode, I guess. I still stay active. I still work out 5-6 times a week sometimes. And it's just more about maintaining what I have, not, becoming a victim of being sedentary and making poor choices. So I just do it to stay actively aging is what I like to call it. That's kind of what I'm doing. And as far as tips,
how can they get muscle though? I think that those that are commenting, they're saying, I need to get muscle. I'm having a hard time on a vegan diet. How can I get my muscle?
First and foremost, I tell people, don't obsess over protein. Don't do it. You can be led down a bad spiral and probably buying expensive, nothing more than a waste supplements that are going to go in your body and right back out and literally down the toilet. So don't get caught up in the protein myth first and foremost. People talk about complete proteins, and protein is necessary, but we obsess over it to the tune of bad kidneys. People end up in dialysis from overconsumption and stuff, because the thing is, your body's only going to use what it needs. The rest you're going to have to excrete. You put an extra stress on the kidneys to get that out of your body.
So what's best to eat for the muscle?
Always fresh fruits and veggies. The thing is, amino acids are what's critical. They're the building blocks of protein. So if you consume enough fresh fruits and vegetables, along with beans, lentils, legumes, whole grains, just a complete, well-rounded, so to speak, nutritional profile, you have no problems. And even if you splurge every now and then, go to some of the vegan restaurants and get some of the comfort food, if you will, you'll be fine. Just make sure you got that basic foundation: fruits, vegetables, beans, nuts, grains, legumes, like that. And really, if you're building muscle, it's going to come down to your resistance training, because this is a common misconception in the bodybuilding world. When we're talking, especially with omnivores, they're pounding protein shakes, eating 20, 30 chicken breasts a day and eggs, and thinking this protein thing. People are taking in 2 times their body weight in protein, 2 and 3 times. I've seen people taking in the highest 350 grams of protein in a day. And I'm like, for what? Your body is only going to absorb what it needs, that minimal amount. The rest you're going to have to excrete. Mm-hmm. So where is that going? There's an analogy that one of the doctors used, one of the plant-based doctors. He was like, it's like if you're building a house, and let's say it's a brick house, and trucks are dropping off bricks, and you get the bricks and you build it up to where you need it. You put the roof on, it's complete. But then if trucks keep delivering the bricks, they become a hazard, an eyesore, and then dangerous. And you don't want to go down that route. Because if it was all about protein, I'm not picking on the protein people, he or she who consumes the most protein would automatically have bigger muscles. It's going to come down to your resistance training. Focus on that. That's how you're going to actually build a muscle. Just make sure you got a well-rounded nutritional profile backing it up. And then that workout is just that 30%. Nutrition is about 70, 80% in my book. And that workout is that other 30, 20% that's going to give you what you're looking for. Resistance training is what's going to build a muscle.
Yeah, I'm trying to think in my own frame of reference when I was doing ballet, because to me, being vegan was just a lifestyle. It wasn't a diet. But I built, I mean, people would just go crazy over my calf muscles or my abs. I mean, but I was getting a very lean ballet body. But I think I ate a lot of salads and fruits and vegetables, but I also didn't necessarily watch my carbs. But I think what happens is sometimes when people go vegan, they might go to a very heavy carb diet because they don't know how to eat. See, I was lucky. My mom raised me vegan, so she was cooking in the house, healthy. But I certainly wasn't focused on what can I eat to build a ballet body. I was just eating a vegan diet, plant-based diet, and then I was exercising every day.
Yes.
I'll show you.
That's it right there.
Me.
Oh, nice.
Here we go.
Wow.
And yeah, so never broke a bone either. And I think veganism is definitely a recipe for being a great athlete.
Absolutely. It's the foundation, if you ask me. And you mentioned game changers earlier. That's one that opened a lot of athletes' eyes, both amateur, professional, high schoolers. A lot of people saw that documentary, and you wouldn't believe the amount of inbox messages and phone calls I got from people I never thought would consider, a plant-based diet. And that was their aha moment, like the documentary with the animals back in the day that kind of got me to go vegetarian. That was their moment, seeing game changers. So seeing is believing. When you see something that goes against the grain, and some people have a hard time processing that information because the minute they're done with that documentary, they see, beef, it's what's for dinner, or milk does a body good, and all these other little cliche advertising gimmicks.
Honestly, that should be a lawsuit like the tobacco industry.
Exactly.
That's the lawyer in me. But I mean, milk does the body good. It's like advertising that tobacco does the body good. And then there's $1 billion class action settlements. And now there's all these government warnings and disclaimers, which is really why there's all these campaigns and lobbying groups trying to say there should be government warnings on the labels of food for dairy. I mean, let's face it, meat is a group 1 carcinogen processed meat. By the World Health Organization, right up there with asbestos and tobacco. So I don't understand these people that are saying to me, oh, well, the Beyond Burger and the Impossible Burger and the Ozo plant, whatever burger that is plant-based or made out of mushrooms or pea protein is processed and full of chemicals and therefore not as healthy. First of all, if you look at the back of those containers, there's not a single ingredient that I don't recognize that would indicate that it's full of chemicals and processed. And third of all, it's not listed on the World Health Organization's website as a group 1 carcinogen like tobacco and asbestos. So stop trying to justify your meat by putting down and attacking the plant-based option, which is researched to be the healthier option. But I think people can't wrap their head around something adopting the texture of meat and adopting the flavor of meat and not being meat. So therefore, it must be bad for you because it's fake and not natural. But what they don't realize is that the meat that they're eating is not natural. It's pumped with hormones and it's dead body parts that are hacked up. And you're better off eating the mushroom pea protein version.
Exactly. I mean, people don't really realize it, but like you said, the hormones and antibiotics that these animals are fed to get them to get bigger, faster, sooner, so they can be sent off to slaughter, that's going directly into your body, all those chemicals, and they're fat soluble too. They're not water soluble, so you're not going to just excrete them like you would let's just say if you're taking a vitamin like B12 or something, it's water soluble. If you take too much, you're just going to excrete it from your body. They're fat soluble, meaning those chemicals are going to break down and store in your body fat. So you're putting yourself in a very toxic state by consuming animal products from these industrialized farms. I mean, because that's the way they raise the animals. They pump them full of antibiotics and hormones constantly, amongst other things, because they're so in that herd, those monocultures, the disease spreads rampant amongst them too. I mean, when we're talking like chickens and those,
bird flu.
I don't know what to call them. I wouldn't. Yeah, it's horrendous conditions. If people could see it more and understand what's happening with it, I think that would awaken a lot of people too. But it's like they don't really want to know. It's like they'd rather leave it unknown than know. It's like, I really don't want to know where it comes from. I just want to put some salt and pepper on it and toss it on the grill. You know,
people don't want to know,
but not really knowing the origin.
Yeah, but also our federal laws make it, the ag-gag laws, the agricultural laws that are in place that basically gag any bystander from reporting the crimes on animals. They actually make you a terrorist. It's a federal crime up to a level of a terrorist. So they criminalize you for reporting the crime. So the person who's witnessing the crime, if they report it and are a whistleblower, they're the terrorist and the criminal. That's what our law says now, which is a problem because that allows a lot of good people to compartmentalize and say, I don't want to know. Because you know what? They don't really have to know. And the laws are protecting them from knowing. So who says that quote? If slaughterhouses had glass walls,
Paul McCartney.
I don't remember. Okay, but seriously, if slaughterhouses had glass walls, I think everyone would change, and it wouldn't be just about health.
Oh yeah, I had friends with different AR organizations, and I had friends that actually went undercover doing investigations, and some of the things they reported back, and this was when the ag-gag first came out a few years ago, the conditions and the things they were reporting, and like you mentioned, the powerful lobbies with all these dollars, they got that bill passed, and it's to the detriment of the American public, and people don't realize it. You telling me I can be a terrorist for reporting the torture that's going on at a slaughterhouse, but then some of the, well, I won't get into all that political stuff, but there's some very unjust issues that go on that should be taken way more serious than that. But I'll leave that at that.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of injustice that goes on even before the animals get to the slaughterhouses too.
Oh yeah,
the way they're raised. Oh boy, it's just a whole industry of trying to come up with ethical and humane standards of raising the animals, and the reality is, it's still not ethical and humane. But the consumer wants to know animals are treated right. So there's these labels that are coming out that are certifying humane treatment when it's really not humane, but people think it's humane because it says it on the packaging, like humanely raised or free range. What does free range mean? That they can stand up to the range?
Exactly.
That they get
those are just more little flashy bells and whistles, you know, grass-fed and humanely raised, cage-free. Yeah, you know, the chickens that are crammed on top of each other are not in cages. So, I mean, it's psyche. It's to make the end consumer feel better. However, they really, really, really don't know what's going on behind the scenes. And if they did, I'm sure most people would change, because I don't know of anybody that could just find that entertaining, for one, or just sit up and consume it and not be bothered by it. We all have empathy within us. I think that based on your life experiences, some people may be more resistant to it based on what you've been through, but we all have it within us. And especially when you see like animals, for example, we were talking about the chickens, when you see the conditions they live in, I don't think you can't help but sympathize, empathize, and feel compassionate towards what they've been through and make better choices, because you know that what you're doing as the end consumer is making that possible.
And chickens are actually very intelligent, and they give hugs, and they like to cuddle, and they're very, very sentient beings. But we have a disconnect. That was another thing that Rowdy Girl Sanctuary Renee was saying on the show last, that she'd like to, they work with a lot of the vets that come to their sanctuary, and they have files. And she says one thing that bothers her is when they have the files, they have files that say dog, cat, and then they have files that say food animal.
Wow.
And she says that she wants to get rid of that. Like, there shouldn't be a file that says food animal at a vet. Like, that's just
insane.
Discrimination.
That is insane. I mean, and the thing is, I think if people, they can't visit the slaughterhouses or confinement facilities. Let's just, if people would at least take the time and visit a sanctuary and kind of bond with animals, I think they would definitely get it. I have a client here who owns a Thai restaurant, and she never thought she would be able to make that connection because of what she serves in the restaurant and kind of grew up doing, and I talked to her. Eventually she did create a vegan menu in her restaurant, and from a financial standpoint, it now outperforms the regular Thai food menu. And then she took her kids to one of the sanctuaries, and she's slowly on her journey eliminating animal products from her own personal diet. So
when is the restaurant going to go vegan?
I know, I'm trying. We've made a big step with the vegan menu. I mean, it has its own separate, not just, salad like most places. I mean, she has a whole full legit vegan menu because she was working with me. And as I said, through my training, my philosophy is, look, this is what I stand for and this is what I promote. It's not for everybody, but if you open your mind, I think I can get you not only healthy, but take you on this spiritual cleansing as well. And people that are open and receptive to it, they do find themselves. I've had where I got one parent out of a household, for example, training with me, and I promote things a certain way and look for certain things when I check their food log. And through that, what I'm educating them about, it eventually transitions and trickles down to the whole family. And then next thing you know, the whole household is plant-based, vegan, and you typically it starts from the dietary place with me, but then the ones like the young lady I mentioned earlier that do take the time out and visit a sanctuary, they do get to see it and interact with animals, and they realize that, yeah, they're just like us, really. We're all animals. Some of us are just furry, feathery, have 4 legs, whatever the difference is, but we're all animals.
Yeah, we all have a consciousness. We all want to live. We're all creatures of the same planet. So for some reasons, humans have these very large egos that think that we have dominion and control and are better than, but who knows if the animals have their own religion that we don't know about, right? Who knows what their Bible says and their gospel says? Those ant piles are pretty smart. Those ants are intelligent. The way those ants live with their little dirt piles, and
I know.
I mean, they have cities going on there. And when we are in an airplane flying over our cities, we're little ants too. So we just think we're bigger and better, but we're really not.
It's amazing. I can just sit there and watch ants, and it blows my mind how, like you said, intelligent they are. They all have this same mission. You see them lining up where they're building an ant hill or whatever, and it's just like, look how they work together and get along.
Yeah, they carry bread on their back for their family.
Yes, it's amazing.
Gwenna Hunter, I'm sure, right?
What's that?
Gwenna Hunter, right?
Oh, yeah, that's my girl. Love Gwenna.
Yeah, so she was on my show, and she started telling me I had rescued a roach that weekend. And yeah, my dad thought I was crazy. And I wouldn't let him kill it. And it got away, actually, in the house. And he's like very mad at me that this roach is now a huge roach is roaming in the house. But, the next day we saw it again run across the room. And we caught it in a bath mat. And I rolled up the mat and I'm carrying this roach and I'm flinging it outside the front door. And I'm telling Gwenna about the story, and she's like, that's so weird. I just had a dream about these little roaches. And she's like, and they were cute. And I go, cute? And she goes, yes. I'm like, oh, I think that's taken to a whole other level, Gwenna. I just wanted to save the roach. She's like, no, they were cute with their little antennas, and they were telling me how tough they are. And that's why they're so hard to kill, because they're tough, but that everyone's so mean to them. I mean, she had this whole dream about these little roaches. And yes. So that's a whole other level of vegan spirituality, consciousness expanding, when you realize that you have to go on rescue missions in your house for the little insects that somehow get in.
That's funny. And, you know, I'm here in Arizona, and I guess public enemy number one out here is the scorpion when the weather gets warm. And people will throw their refrigerator at a scorpion to try to kill it. And whenever, you know, it's come through my fitness studio or in the house, I just scoop them up and move them and take them outside. And you should see how people freak out. Be like, kill it. And I'm like, why? I'm just going to put it in a different environment.
Yeah, it's stuck. It's trapped. It doesn't want to be in your house.
Exactly. I mean, I've never been stung by one, fortunately, so I don't know what that feels like. But people freak out with the scorpions out here. And I mean, they would literally, you know, I'm in open carry state too. They would literally shoot it. And I'm like, no, let's just scoop it up. It's not going to sting me. I'll get a little piece of paper, take it out, and, you know, let it roam free.
Yeah. So Miriam, thank you for the question. And I'm going to take that as a compliment about my skincare regimen. So I'm going to tell you, I really believe that the skincare regimen, it might just be youth, but it's veganism. Because I don't have any special face wash. I don't have any special makeup. I go to the drugstore. I try to buy what says to be cruelty-free or Be Veg certified vegan, the only ISO accredited vegan standard in the world. I do really like, and I noticed, but the George's aloe vera water. I buy that offline on Amazon, and I can say that when I was a teenager and I did get acne, I tried everything and nothing worked. And I had a family member who was very spiritual and into natural remedies. And she had me drink 8 ounces of this George's aloe vera water, and my skin cleared up overnight. And I then took it regularly when I got through my teen years of drinking the aloe water. And now I do have that every now and then, but less regularly. I really think it's just being plant-based, and you are what you eat. But I can say that aloe water does work miracles. I think what comes out in our skin and what we sweat is often what's going on in our gut. And aloe water cleans the gut. But a lot of things can clean the gut. But the George's aloe water, it tastes just like water. I wonder if it's something I could buy stock in. It's honestly a great product, but can't really say much more beyond that. But thank you for the compliment. Let's see. Plant-based is good skincare. Yes, Carol. I agree. It's also great for the body. Look at this. Plant-based muscle, plant performance, which brings me to
body good.
Plant does body good, which brings me, I want to add someone else to this show who has a Be Veg certified vegan product called Chicken Bites. And Bobby Lynch is the founder of Chicken Bites, and he also is into vegan training. Hi, Bobby. How are you?
Hey, what's up, man?
Hey, it's great to meet you.
Yeah, you guys both have a lot in common. You both are into plant strength performance. Let's see, Bobby, there's Bobby's workout off of plants. Nice abs.
Thanks, Carissa.
So I'm sure you've listened into some of this show backstage and have heard us comment on some things. You probably have a lot to add in terms of vegan protein, in terms of how to get vegan muscle, in terms of the flavor of food, since you now have a vegan product launch that's Be Veg certified. Weigh in. Tell us about yourself.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's amazing what you're doing, man. Like how in shape you are. It's crazy. It really sets the tone. IFBB Pro. My roommate, and he's one of my business partners, DJ More Fit. I'll give him a little shout out right now. He's looking to step on stage and to take his physique to the next level. So I'm gonna have to connect you with him because he really needs something. But yeah, I think everything that you're doing is absolutely amazing, because that was like my initial thought on founding Plant Strength. I didn't even found Plant Strength initially with the thought of chicken bites, which I have right here. I founded it doing online vegan fitness and nutrition coaching to defy the status quo and prove what's possible through the power of plants, that you can build muscle and be vegan. But then that really just grew into so much more of defying the status quo on so many different levels of what it means to be vegan, on not only just building muscle, but what it means to be vegan as a man in general, or just as a person in general, but specifically because men, the way I see men look at veganism, oh, it's you're a fruitcake, or you're not manly if you eat plants. Only real men eat plants. If you're compassionate and show that you're a loving person, you're not manly. It's so silly. Couldn't be further from the truth. So that's really like what everything Plant Strength embodies. So we morphed from initially a vegan fitness and nutrition company into vegan activism, fitness, nutrition, and lifestyle, really embodying everything vegan. And I can honestly say, I mean, I've been vegan I haven't eaten meat since 2017. I've been fully vegan since 2018. Honestly, was one of the best decisions of my life. And when I went fully vegan, that's when I really realized that this was my calling. And then just recently, about 6 months ago, when I moved down to New York City, I started doing activism, because one of the ambassadors on our team who lives in the city took me to a vigil. And when I got to connect with the animals, because I had seen so many activists go into these vigils on social media. And I mean, seeing them and seeing the documentaries and because first and foremost, I went vegan for the animals above all. I'm vegan for everything, animals, health, environment, but first and foremost, the animals. And when I actually saw them firsthand and just made that connection right there, like, wow, I know these are beautiful sentient creatures, but the fact that I literally cannot do anything legally to stop them from going into their death, it just like really, and I'm feeling it right now, just even thinking about it, it really moved me to the point where I was like, I'm no longer going to be silent about animal rights. And because for the longest time I was thinking my Instagram, my social media at Bobby Physique, I started it, and when I started it, I wasn't even vegan at the time. I started it mainly just for fitness and nutrition purposes. And then when I went vegan, I had my whole transition, but I didn't want to express how I felt about the animals, because I was thinking of other people and thought I'd lose followers. They didn't want to hear it, et cetera, et cetera. And then once I made that like real connection with the animals, even though I'd already had it, but like really connected with them on that level on the vigil, that's when I said, it doesn't matter to me if someone feels some type of way. I'm doing this because that's what I would want done if I were the victim. And that's when my activist voice really came out. And now, like, if you go on my Instagram, you'll see vegan, athlete, and activist. And I only had the opposite response. People were like, I gained more followers, my engagement went way up, and people were reaching out and saying, thank you for not only being an athlete, a bodybuilder, and talking about fitness and nutrition, but combining it with the ethics and the animals. People love that. And so now that's why we're an activism company. We started doing activism right around the city. We have a whole Plant Strength movement tour that we are scheduling. We're about to release the date, and we go out, we hold signs, real men eat plants. You don't need meat to build muscle, prove us wrong. We're shirtless. We have vegan on our chest. We have a whole team out there. It's a great time. Give out samples of our chicken bites. It's just, it's phenomenal. And you know, again, I really do appreciate everything that both of you guys are doing, just spreading this vegan movement. And
I think one thing I just want to say that's so important, because as the founder of Be Veg, the only vegan certification standard in the world that has ISO accreditation, I think it's really important because I'm finding that there's a major education campaign that needs to be done for the word vegan versus plant-based. And I know that there's also now the plant-based certification symbol, which I think the Plant-Based Food Association does great work. But I think the reality is we need to be very careful. And we as vegans need to maintain our identity with the word vegan, because plant-based is a diet. Plant-based is mostly plants. It does not mean free from animal residue. So to have a plant-based certification that might define itself as free from animal residue is trying to make our cause, our ethical movement, which could have constitutional protection one day as vegans. It could be like a moral religious movement. If we start allowing the laws and the products to start adopting plant-based terminology instead of vegan, we are chipping away at our own ability to carve out rights for us as vegans, as a movement of people based on an ethical, moral compass. And we cannot lose the meaning of the word vegan. Even though plant-based is popular, it's so important to always use vegan in the same. I eat plants. I believe in a plant-based lifestyle. Mostly because most things aren't vegan certified, so you don't know for sure if it's free from animal residue. But we cannot start adopting the word plant-based in exchange for vegan, because vegan in the past has had a negative connotation, and people sometimes think, oh, it's too strict or it's too all these things, which is why at Be Veg, Bobby, hold up your thing, your chicken bites to show the logo. So can we the logo?
Oh, right here.
Yeah. So see, the logo says vegan, and it also says Be Veg certified under it. We don't want to start getting into plant-based and foregoing the word vegan. The V is still important to people, and Be Veg, I'm trying to make more like, oh yeah, Be Veg. Be Veg is a lifestyle. You know, plant strength performance with Be Veg at the bottom here. Veganism needs to be cool and mainstream. Plant-based is a movement towards the ultimate vegan diet and the vegan life, right? That's what it really needs to be. And I really caution vegans that care about the animals to not get too caught up on plant-based terminology, because it's going to harm us in the end. I'm writing the first vegan law book in the US. It's going to be published this year with vegan publishers. In order for us to really gain rights for, you know, against employment discrimination, or, you know, who determines the rights of a child if parents get divorced, or vegan labeling law. You know, I saw that ISO, so we have the ISO vegan standard and scheme and scope. We're the only one right now at Be Veg. But I know that ISO is also carving out definitions for the word vegan. And it was recently attacked by a vegan organization saying, because it's defining technical standards and parameters, saying that if that's going to be the definition, it shouldn't be called vegan, it should be called plant-based. And I didn't get into the whole back and forth. I didn't even respond. But I think it's a very dangerous argument for us to be saying change it to plant-based and get rid of vegan, because that's not really vegan. Because what we need as vegans is the word vegan to be identified under the law. And then we worry about the definition and changing it and updating it. But if you're going to pen into the law plant-based and not vegan, we don't have rights as individuals. We will never be a protected constitutional class if we don't protect the word vegan. And I don't think vegans understand the magnitude of this, because plant-based is a popular thing to be a part of right now. And we could lose our entire constitutional protection, which I believe could be the next movement, like women's suffrage movement, gender discrimination, marriage equality. There's no reason that veganism cannot be the next movement, because already in the UK there's that holding, which has made it like a religious class. In the US, there's been case law where the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission has found against discrimination in cases in the employment, and has found for the vegans, saying that it is likened to a religion where it is a moral and ethical belief system. So it's only a matter of time that it becomes strict scrutiny that is protecting us as a class. But we risk losing that if we start identifying as plant-based. Plant-based is a diet, vegan is a lifestyle, and we cannot lose veganism on packaged product goods. Just like there's kosher, which identifies a lifestyle, we cannot lose the word vegan.
It's the same reason for why I was not wanting to speak out about animal rights at first, because I was worried about other people's opinions. And that's the same thing that I see here about vegans who say, oh, maybe we should use plant-based, because I've had people say, maybe you should market your product as plant-based versus vegan. And I always come back as, cannot do that, because it is vegan, and it's vegan for a reason. And the first and foremost reason is for the animals. And that's exactly why. And because the same thing, I've had people say, well, when we do our activism, maybe we should say plant-based instead of vegan, because there's a negative connotation around veganism because people just aren't properly educated. That's why we defy that status quo and we say vegan, because people need to know exactly what vegan means. And it's not worrying about other people. You know,
It's owning it, it's being proud, it's doing documentaries like Game Changers, it's being bodybuilders and saying hashtag vegan, you know, like, and I think it's smart. Plant-built muscle, plant strength performance, hashtag vegan. Don't lose the vegan in the plant message. That's all, because I think it's so important, and I know that the Plant-Based Food Association is doing really good work in terms of lobbying for the cause, and they have the plant-based certification, which I know can be popular, but the word plant-based doesn't mean anything. It means mostly plants, based in plants. Well, what about all the ingredients, the insignificant ingredients that the FDA says you don't have to disclose, and the incidental ingredients that have contamination at the factory? You cannot have a free from animal claim if it's not a vegan certified claim by Be Veg, because no other vegan certification does factory audits and has factory controls in place or anything else. But I can tell you, plant-based is a wonderful movement, but it needs to be in conjunction with vegan. And vegans need to know that, because I hear the rhetoric changing. Plant-based, plant-based. Okay, plant-based, vegan. Don't lose it. So important. Okay, so where can everyone, I know you guys you're training people, you have programs. How can people find you during COVID, after COVID?
You want to go first? Yeah, you go first. You were on first. You were on the show first. Go ahead.
All right. Well, you can always find me on Instagram at Will Tucker Fitness. Also on Facebook by the same name, but I'm mainly active on the Instagram platform at Will Tucker Fitness. You can find me there. I have links for all the programs that I offer in-person, virtual, as well as online. And as I said, once we get past this pandemic, when we turn the page, you can find me coming to a neighborhood near you, standing on the corner, promoting my message, beating my drum. So look out for me.
Love it. And I just actually followed you myself, Will, and we should.
Oh yeah, I'll connect with you too.
Yeah, let's connect after the show. But you guys can find me on Instagram personally at BodyFuzion. And then you can also find us everywhere online, plantstrength.com, and then also on Instagram at Plant Strength Performance. Both Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, everywhere. You can find us both for the Plant Strength link or BodyFuzion. You can find me personally on all social media.
Okay, guys. Well, thank you so much for defying the grain, really, and really being a message that you can be manly and you can be masculine and you can be vegan, and you can have muscle.
Absolutely.
Of course, it's so much bigger than us.
It is so much bigger than us, and there's so much to do for this movement and cause. So the world needs more people like you doing what you're doing, changing the world. So on that note, keep changing the world. And for everyone else, we'll be back next week, same time, same place. Thank you for joining us on The Laws That Matter.